Black Woman Told to Move by Entitled Dad. Flight attendant's clapback goes viral. The sharp crack of ice in a glass was the only sound Jasmine Ford could hear over the pounding in her ears. She hadn't even taken a sip of the ginger ale the flight attendant had just handed her before everything spiraled. "You need to move." "Now," the man in the aisle said, looming over her like he owned the air she was breathing. He wore a suit so expensive it looked stiff on his body, and the smug confidence on his face was the kind Jasmine had grown used to over the years. Boardroom confidence. The kind that didn't need facts or fairness, only assumption. She blinked, unsure she'd heard him right. "I'm sorry. My son and I were separated at check-in," he continued, voice rising just enough for nearby passengers to start turning their heads. "He's nervous. I need you to take his seat in economy so I can sit here." The man didn't even glance at her boarding pass. He just assumed. "My name is Jasmine Ford. This is my seat, 3A. I'm not moving." The man, later she'd learn his name was Blake Holston, let out a scoffing breath. "Figures," he muttered. Jasmine's jaw clenched. She'd heard it all before. The passive-aggressive tone. The assumption that she didn't belong. She was the only black woman in business class. Again. "Excuse me?" she said coolly, trying to keep her voice steady. "You heard me. I spend over 6 figures a year with this airline. I know this seat wasn't yours until last minute." "You got bumped up, didn't you?" "Correct," Jasmine said, resisting the urge to smile. "I'm a platinum member. I earned the upgrade." Holston took a step closer. "You don't look like a platinum member." That did it. Passengers were now fully tuned in. Cell phones were out. Someone 2 rows behind whispered, "Is he serious?" Before Jasmine could respond, the flight attendant, young, petite, Korean-American, her name tag reading Lena Park, appeared out of nowhere. Her presence was commanding in a way Jasmine hadn't expected. Lena didn't raise her voice, didn't posture. She just stood between them and said calmly, "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your seat." "She needs to move," Holston snapped, gesturing at Jasmine like she was a piece of luggage. "This is outrageous." "Mr. Holston, you are not permitted to request another passenger to give up their assigned seat," Lena replied evenly. "You can ask if anyone would like to trade, but Ms. Ford is under no obligation to do so. She doesn't belong here." The silence that followed sucked the air out of the cabin. Lena's eyes narrowed just slightly. Then she said louder this time, so the entire business class could hear, "Sir, Ms. Ford is exactly where she belongs. This is her assigned seat. You, however, are now creating a safety hazard by blocking the aisle before takeoff." Holston's face turned beet red. Jasmine felt her fingers trembling under the tray table, but she refused to look away. Her grandfather, a Tuskegee airman, used to say dignity was holding your ground when everything in the room told you to sit down. She stayed seated, back straight, staring him down. Then came the spit, a sharp burst of white. It hit her cheek just beneath her eye. Gasps exploded across the cabin. "You better learn your place," Holston seethed. Jasmine didn't move. Neither did Lena. The silence stretched for 3 terrifying seconds. Then Lena calmly reached for the intercom. "Captain, we need security at 3A. Immediate de-escalation required." It all happened fast after that. A pair of uniformed air marshals who had apparently been aboard for unrelated reasons stepped up, took Holston by the elbows, and guided him down the aisle as he shouted, "She provoked me! She made me do it!" The applause started behind her, scattered at first, then swelling, but Jasmine didn't feel victorious. She felt humiliated. That was just the beginning. 12 hours earlier, Jasmine had been sipping coffee in her apartment in downtown Dallas, prepping for the pitch of her life. She was an aerospace engineer, and after a decade of scraping her way up in an industry that wasn't built for people like her, she had landed a chance to interview with Altavia Dynamics, a fast-growing, minority-led aviation tech firm in Portland. She had her pitch deck locked, her research refined, her clothes laid out. But when she checked in at the gate, they'd told her there was a delay on her original flight. A gate agent had kindly upgraded her to business class on a partner flight, Flight 344 to Seattle, with a connection. It had felt like a win. She hadn't expected the turbulence, either literal or figurative. Back in the present, Jasmine sat in stunned silence as a flight attendant gently dabbed her cheek with a cool, damp towel. "We're going to land in Denver for a quick safety inspection," the attendant said softly. "We'll have officials waiting. Are you okay?" Jasmine nodded, though her mind was screaming. This wasn't just a rude man. This was about every moment she'd been talked over in a meeting, every time she'd been told she was too assertive, or not quite the right cultural fit, every time she'd walked into a room and had to prove she deserved to be there. The plane touched down in Denver, and Jasmine was quietly escorted off with 2 federal agents and Lena, who refused to leave her side. The airline's operations manager was already waiting. "We are so sorry for what happened, Ms. Ford. We're launching a formal investigation. We'll need a statement." "I'm not sure I'm ready to talk," Jasmine said. But it didn't matter. Someone had already posted the video. It was everywhere. Jasmine's face. Holston's words. Lena's exact response. The caption read, "White exec tells black woman she doesn't belong. Flight attendant's clapback stuns everyone." The internet did what it does. By the time she got to her hotel, the video had over 4 million views, and then the threats began. Messages like, "Bet you feel powerful now, race hustler," or "You embarrassed a father and his son for internet points. Shame on you." But there were others too. "I've never flown business class, but I saw myself in you. You held your ground. Thank you." Jasmine sat on the edge of the hotel bed, watching the screen flash with new notifications every second. The fallout was only beginning. She hadn't even arrived at her interview yet, and she had no idea that the man who'd spat on her had powerful friends. And that he wasn't done. He had resources. He had reach. But Jasmine had something more dangerous. The truth. And now, the whole world was watching. The next morning, Jasmine woke up to find her phone overheating from notifications. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, every platform was on fire. Her name was trending alongside hashtags like #Shad flying while black, #Seat for dignity, and unexpectedly, #Lena the legend. Her inbox had swelled to over 600 unread emails. Some were messages of support from strangers. Others were from journalists, podcast hosts, and even TV producers. The story had gone fully national overnight. But then came the real gut punch. An email from Altavia Dynamics' HR department. Subject: Interview status, important update. Dear Ms. Ford, in light of recent media attention, we believe it would be prudent to postpone your interview. We understand this may be disappointing, but we need to ensure all conversations are free from distraction. We'll be in touch about rescheduling. Sincerely, Alan Reese, Director of Talent Acquisition. Jasmine stared at the screen. Her mouth went dry. Postpone felt like corporate code for, "Don't call us, we'll call you." A knock came at her hotel door. It was Lena. She was in plain clothes now, her hair down, and looked tired but determined. "Hey," she said softly. "Can I come in for a minute?" Jasmine nodded, stepping aside. Lena set a paper coffee cup on the dresser. "I heard about your interview. I'm so sorry." "They didn't say it was cancelled," Jasmine replied, her voice distant. Just postponed, which might be worse. Lena took a breath. I need to tell you something. You're not the only one facing fallout. Jasmine's stomach tightened. What do you mean? I've been placed on administrative leave, pending review. What? Why? You were doing your job. Exactly, Lena said bitterly. But according to the airline, I violated neutrality by raising my voice. Apparently, defending a passenger against racial harassment is a grey area in their handbook. That's ridiculous. They didn't care when I de-escalated a drunk man who tried to punch another passenger last year. I got a commendation for that. But this is too political. Jasmine felt anger rise in her chest. They're trying to protect themselves, avoid controversy. Blame the woman of color who made the situation go viral. Exactly, Lena said, her smile sad. It's not about what happened. It's about who it happened to. The two women sat in silence, the hotel room strangely quiet amid the chaos unraveling online. Jasmine's phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. We know what hotel you're in. Shut your mouth or we'll shut it for you. She held the screen out to Lena. This is the third one today. Lena's eyes narrowed. You need to file a police report. And say what? That I got death threats because I refused to give up my seat? You're a public figure now, Jazz, whether you like it or not. Jasmine exhaled, then opened her laptop to draft a statement. Something to get ahead of the backlash and maybe save her chance at Altavia. But just as she started typing, her phone rang again. Unknown number. Against better judgment, she answered. Ms. Ford, came a smooth male voice. This is Grant Holloway, counsel for Mr. Blake Holston. My client would like to resolve this situation amicably. Jasmine felt her back straighten. Excuse me? He feels your version of events has been mischaracterized. The press has made assumptions. There's an opportunity to clarify things, publicly. She glanced at Lena, whose expression was turning dark. Let me guess, Jasmine said into the phone. He wants me to issue a statement saying it was a misunderstanding. That he didn't mean what he said. If you're open to a mutual resolution, Holloway continued, ignoring her sarcasm. Mr. Holston is willing to make a generous charitable donation. Off the record. All we ask is a brief social media post stating that both parties regret the incident. Jasmine laughed bitterly. He spit on me, in front of witnesses. And now he wants to write it off as a PR hiccup? He's a father, Ms. Ford, the voice replied coolly. He's worried about his son. Jasmine could almost hear the threat behind the calm tone. She hung up. I take it Holston's trying to buy you off, Lena said. They're scared, Jasmine muttered. The narrative's slipping out of their control. Just then her laptop pinged. A new email from an unexpected sender. From jcarson@altaviadynamics.com. Subject, let's talk. Jasmine clicked it open. Ms. Ford, my name is Jordan Carson, Chief Strategy Officer at Altavia. I saw the HR email, and I want to be clear. That was not my decision. I'd like to meet with you in person. No cameras, no pressure. Just a conversation. I'm flying into Denver this afternoon. I'll be at the Delano Lounge downtown at 6 p.m. If you're open to it, I'll be there. Jasmine reread the message 3 times. What's that? Lena asked. Someone higher up at Altavia wants to meet, today. Lena hesitated. Could be good. Could also be a trap. I'm going. Want backup? Jasmine smiled, surprised by how much she appreciated the offer. Yeah, I think I do. The Delano Lounge was upscale, with low lighting, dark leather booths, and quiet jazz humming beneath conversation. Jasmine entered in a navy blazer, minimal makeup, and her curls pinned back, professional, but calm. Lena followed discreetly, seating herself at the bar while Jasmine approached a table in the corner where a clean-shaven man in his 40s stood as she arrived. "Ms. Ford," he greeted, shaking her hand. "Jordan Carson. Thank you for coming." "I wasn't sure I would," Jasmine said, sliding into the booth. "Neither was I," he replied. "But I wanted to see the person who just stared down one of the most powerful executives in our sector and didn't flinch." She tilted her head. "You mean Blake Holston?" Jordan nodded. "He's not just loud, he's connected. He sits on 3 advisory boards. And yes, he has investors in Altavia. So this is damage control. This is an invitation," he said, his tone softer now. "I've reviewed your work, your composite layering methodology. It's the future. I don't care what went viral yesterday. I care what you're building." Jasmine stared at him, trying to read between the lines. "And the HR postponement?" she asked. Jordan shook his head. "A mistake. One we're correcting. If you're still willing, I'd like to personally host your interview tomorrow morning." She didn't respond right away. "I'm not asking you to drop anything," he added. "I'm not asking you to play nice. Just show us what you can do." Jasmine leaned back. For the first time in 24 hours, her heart stopped racing. "I'll be there," she said. As she stood to leave, Jordan handed her a small card. "One more thing. There's a private scholarship foundation Altavia funds, quietly. It's for black women in aerospace. The board's been looking for someone new to help lead it." "Someone with guts. Think about it." Jasmine walked out of the Delano, feeling the world tilt just slightly back into her favor. But she didn't know that back at her hotel. A man in a dark hoodie was slipping something into the mail slot at the front desk. A padded envelope. Inside, a USB drive, and a note that read, "You think this is over? It's just beginning." The war wasn't over. It had barely started. Jasmine barely slept. Even though the meeting with Jordan Carson had given her a much-needed glimmer of hope, that single sentence on the anonymous note from the padded envelope haunted her. "You think this is over? It's just beginning." By sunrise, she was dressed, packed, and standing at the window of her hotel room, watching the Denver skyline bathe in early light. The envelope had been turned over to hotel security, and they'd promised to review the surveillance footage. But Jasmine wasn't holding her breath. The hotel wasn't exactly eager to be dragged into a viral discrimination case. At 7:00 a.m., she received a brief text from Jordan. "Interview confirmed at 10. Ask for floor 27, conference room B. Good luck." She replied, "Thank you, I'll be ready." Lena showed up in the lobby with 2 coffees in hand and a smirk on her face. "Ready to go kick ass and take offers?" Jasmine forced a smile. "Nervous, but yeah." They didn't talk much on the way to Altavia's downtown Denver tower. Jasmine needed the silence to focus. Her portfolio rested on her lap, hands tight around the leather strap. In her head, she was rehearsing her pitch, the innovations she'd made in nano-layered composite sheeting, the potential weight reduction for next-gen aircraft, the cost-saving metrics. Every number, every slide, every sentence had to land. The elevator ride to the 27th floor felt like a rocket launch. When the doors opened, she stepped out alone. The receptionist at the executive suite waved her toward the glass conference room. Inside sat Jordan and 3 others, an older black woman with a calm, assessing gaze, a younger Asian American man typing notes, and a white woman in a red blazer with sharp eyes and an unreadable expression. Jordan stood. "Everyone, this is Jasmine Ford." "Jasmine, meet Vice President Clara Owens, Director Eric Lee, and Lead Technical Advisor Dr. Meredith Clark." Jasmine greeted them each with quiet confidence, took her seat, and opened her laptop. "Thank you for having me," she began. "Before I begin, I'd like to state clearly, I understand the context around this meeting has changed, but I haven't. My work speaks for itself." She clicked her remote. The room darkened, and her presentation came to life. Over the next 25 minutes, she walked them through her research, the carbon nanotube-infused composite paneling she'd developed, the new manufacturing process that could reduce waste and improve tensile strength by 23%, the test simulations she'd run at Georgia Institute of Tech. Every detail was crisp, confident, unshakable. No one interrupted. When she finished, a moment of silence followed. Then Clara Owens leaned forward. "You said this was tested at Georgia Tech?" "Yes, ma'am. 3 years of prototype trials in collaboration with their aerospace lab. I've brought peer reviews and data logs." Clara nodded, then turned to Meredith. "Dr. Clark?" Meredith folded her hands. "It's impressive. Honestly, it's one of the more forward-thinking approaches I've seen in years. And she's right about the cost model. It would save us millions in the long run if scaled properly." Eric added, "We've been spinning our wheels with outdated titanium weave models. Her process could be the reset we need." Jordan gave Jasmine a small nod. "Thank you, Ms. Ford. That was outstanding." But just as Jasmine began to exhale, Clara lifted her tablet. "I do have to ask," she said slowly, "how do you respond to the other side of the conversation? The media fallout, the allegations that you engineered a viral incident to boost your profile?" Jasmine's breath caught. It was the question she had feared, but expected. She met Clara's gaze. "I responded to verbal harassment the way anyone should," Jasmine said, calm but direct. "With dignity. I didn't ask to become a symbol. But if standing up for myself cost me opportunities, then maybe those places weren't right for me." Clara didn't blink. "And if the man on the plane decides to sue?" "He already has," Jasmine said without hesitation. "But I've got legal counsel, and more importantly, video evidence." Clara gave the faintest smile. "Good." Jordan stood. "I think that's all the questions we have today. Thank you, Jasmine. We'll be in touch soon." As she packed up, Clara added, "Whether or not you work here, know that what you did mattered." Jasmine smiled for real this time. "Thank you." Outside, Lena was waiting in the building's coffee shop, already halfway through a blueberry muffin. She looked up. "How'd it go?" Jasmine collapsed into the seat beside her. "I don't know, but I didn't hold back." "You never do." They clinked coffee cups. But peace didn't last long. As they stepped outside, they spotted a commotion at the curb. 2 news vans, microphones, a group of reporters, and Blake Halston standing at the center of it all. The entitled father from Flight 607, flanked by a well-dressed lawyer and a boyish PR assistant who looked like he regretted life. "What is he doing here?" Jasmine whispered. Lena stepped protectively in front of her. "Just stay close." But it was too late. One of the reporters spotted her. "Miss Ford! Jasmine Ford! Would you like to respond to Mr. Halston's statement?" Cameras pivoted. Jasmine froze. Blake turned. He was dressed in a navy suit, calm and collected, with just enough performative regret to make him look humble. "I have nothing but respect for Ms. Ford's academic work," he said smoothly, "but the truth is more complicated than a viral clip. I was merely trying to reunite with my son during a turbulent flight. What followed has been blown out of proportion by a mob mentality." Jasmine's jaw tightened. Lena whispered, "Ignore him." "Let's go." But Jasmine stepped forward. A cameraman swung around to capture her face. I didn't say anything before, because I thought the video was enough, she said loudly. But let's be clear. Mr. Halston told me to know my place. He spit on me, and when I stood my ground, he tried to ruin my life. Gasps from the crowd. Halston's PR assistant paled. I'm not interested in apologies performed for cameras, Jasmine continued. I'm interested in accountability. Then she turned and walked away, Lena beside her. As they disappeared down the sidewalk, Blake's calm veneer cracked. He spun toward his lawyer. You said she wouldn't fight back. She wasn't supposed to get a platform, the lawyer muttered. This was supposed to fade. It didn't. That afternoon, Jasmine received a text from Jordan. Call me ASAP. Something big just happened. She dialed instantly. Jordan's voice came through the line, urgent and thrilled. The board met an hour ago. They've offered you the senior materials engineer role, full benefits, sign-on bonus. And they want to make a public statement supporting your hiring. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. Wait, what? You did it, Jasmine, Jordan said. You didn't just get the job. You set a precedent. And for the first time in days, Jasmine let herself cry. Not out of fear, not from exhaustion. But relief. The fight wasn't over. But today she had won. The next 48 hours unfolded like a storm Jasmine never saw coming. The media buzz surrounding her public clapback had barely cooled when the first ripple hit. A carefully worded editorial appeared in a major business news outlet. Its headline read, When activism overreaches, the risk of weaponizing identity in corporate hiring. The article never named Jasmine directly, but the dog whistles were deafening. Within hours, her LinkedIn was flooded with passive-aggressive comments, masked as concern. Impressive credentials, but I hope Altavia made their decision based on merit, not optics. I'm all for diversity, but we can't hire based on who trends online. Jasmine sat in her hotel room, fists clenched, trying to will herself not to reply. She didn't owe anyone an explanation, but rage curled in her chest. It wasn't enough that she had endured public humiliation and career sabotage. Now her success was being rebranded as some woke pity prize. And that was before the real blow landed. A notification pinged on her phone. Blake Halston files $5 million defamation suit against Jasmine Ford. She stared at the screen, her stomach turning. Sarah Johnson, her lawyer, called moments later. I just saw the filing, Sarah said without preamble. They've launched it in state court, probably hoping for a quick ruling before we counter. Are they serious? Jasmine asked, her voice low and tight. He's suing me because I told the truth? He's suing you because you embarrassed him, Sarah replied. And he thinks his money can outlast your endurance. Jasmine sat back on the edge of the bed, her thoughts swirling. What's our move? We fight. And we countersue. We file for tortious interference, professional defamation, and retaliation. But we'll need more than just the plain video. Sarah paused. We need documentation that he tried to kill your hiring prospects before and after your interview. Emails, messages, even internal memos. Anything that proves this wasn't just a disagreement. It was a campaign. Jasmine exhaled slowly. I might have a lead. She reached out to Jordan Carson and asked to speak privately. They met that evening in a quiet booth at a hotel restaurant. I know this puts you in a tough spot, Jasmine said, voice careful. But if there are internal emails between Altavia execs and Blake Halston or his firm, anything showing pressure to rescind my offer, I need to know. Jordan didn't speak for a long moment. She stirred her tea slowly, eyes fixed on the table. You didn't hear this from me, she said finally. But yes, there were conversations. He called 2 board members the day after your interview. Said you were a liability. Said you had a pattern of instigating conflict. Jasmine blinked. Pattern? He referenced a discrimination complaint you filed years ago against a professor, Jordan said. Then suggested you were trying to turn Altavia into a political stunt. Jasmine's chest tightened. That complaint had been buried in her graduate file. No one outside her university should have known about it. Jordan hesitated. But here's the twist. One of our engineers, Leo Torres, accidentally CC'd Blake on an internal memo praising your composite work. That's how he found out you were a finalist. Jasmine's breath caught. So he knew before the interview even happened. He was already planning to bury you, Jordan confirmed. Jasmine returned to her room in a haze. The realization that Blake had moved to destroy her before she'd even stepped into the interview shifted everything. It wasn't about a seat. It was about power. She had threatened his control by daring to exist confidently in a space he believed was his alone. Sarah filed the countersuit the next morning. It didn't take long for headlines to flip. Engineer fires back. Jasmine Ford countersues for retaliation and career sabotage. Jasmine tried to focus on the good news. Altavia was standing by their offer, publicly confirming her new position and praising her qualifications. But every day brought new attacks, anonymous emails with threats, deepfake photos of her face edited onto violent protest images. A fake Twitter account pretending to be her, tweeting outrageous political statements. The final straw came when her mother called crying. Someone had sent a physical letter to their home in Charlotte. You raised a disgrace, it read, and you'll pay the price. Jasmine sat in her new apartment, staring at the box of unpacked dishes, wondering how much more she could take. Her body was in Denver, but her soul felt scattered across every screen, every headline, every whisper in the wind. Then, late that night, a message popped into her inbox. From Ava Halston. Subject, you don't know me, but I know him. Jasmine opened it cautiously. I'm Blake's ex-wife, and I've been watching everything unfold. I believe you. I left that man because of exactly what you're describing now. He uses power to destroy people who won't shrink in front of him. He once tried to sue a female VP who turned him down romantically. She left the industry. I stayed silent for too long. But if you need a witness, someone who can attest to how far he's willing to go, I'm ready. Jasmine reread the message 3 times. Then she called Sarah. We just got a game changer, she said. And her name is Ava. Sarah whistled low. Oh, he is not going to like this. He shouldn't, Jasmine replied, because this time the story doesn't end the way he thinks. Outside, a cold wind howled down the streets of Denver. But inside that apartment, Jasmine Ford felt the flicker of fire return. Not just rage, resolve. The courthouse was colder than Jasmine expected. Maybe it was just the nerves, or maybe it was the weight of knowing that her entire professional life was about to be dissected in public by a man who'd tried to bury her under the weight of his ego. As she stood next to Sarah outside courtroom 3B, her eyes flicked to the polished floor, the high ceilings, the seal of the state above the double oak doors. It felt surreal. This wasn't a place she imagined herself when she started designing wing-load-resistant polymers in college. Yet here she was, not because of her science, but because she refused to move. Inside, Blake Halston sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by a team of suited attorneys from one of Denver's top firms. He looked just as smug as the day he stood over her seat, demanding she give it up. Only now, his smile was tighter. Calculated, like a man who'd underestimated the storm he'd invited. Judge Pennington, a sharp woman in her early 60s with a no-nonsense air and reading glasses that hung low on her nose, took the bench. She'd built her reputation as an even hand, tough on grandstanders, tougher on theatrics. Let's keep this efficient, she said, adjusting her robe. Mr. Halston, you claim that Ms. Ford defamed you through statements made in public and via social media. You're seeking $5 million in damages. Correct? Blake's lead attorney, Mark Kensington, stood. Correct, Your Honor. My client has faced significant damage to his business reputation as a direct result of false narratives pushed online by Ms. Ford. This includes lost contracts, public hostility, and even death threats. Death threats? The judge asked, lifting an eyebrow. Yes, Your Honor, Blake answered himself with a carefully measured tone. This wasn't just a misunderstanding on an airplane. Ms. Ford allowed a situation to spiral and then capitalized on it. She positioned herself as a victim for attention at my expense. My son and I'll be the one asking questions, Judge Pennington said curtly. Jasmine sat still, keeping her face composed, her breath steady. Sarah leaned toward her and whispered, "Just wait." When their turn came, Sarah rose with quiet command. Your Honor, we're not here to rehash social media narratives. We are here to prove a pattern of retaliation and discrimination. Ms. Ford didn't weaponize anything. She survived it. Mr. Halston used his influence to attempt to erase her from her industry. Sarah submitted printed copies of emails, timestamps, witness affidavits, including one that had arrived just that morning from Ava Halston. The judge adjusted her glasses. An affidavit from the plaintiff's ex-wife. She has no personal or financial connection to my client, Sarah replied, and her testimony is corroborated by multiple other sources, including digital forensics on internal communications from Altavia's executive board. Blake's jaw visibly tightened. Then came the moment no one saw coming. From the back of the courtroom, the door creaked open. Trevor Halston, Blake's teenage son, stepped in. Dressed in a dark blue suit and tie that hung slightly too low on his neck, he walked forward with hesitant but firm steps. Sitting behind Jasmine, he nodded briefly at her before turning his attention to the bench. Sarah stood again. Your Honor, with the court's permission, we'd like to call a witness who has direct knowledge of the incident and events that followed. Mr. Trevor Halston. Blake's attorneys stood simultaneously. Objection, Mr. Halston is a minor. He's 17, Sarah said, and has voluntarily submitted a request to testify with the support of his legal guardian, his mother. The judge nodded. Let's hear him. Trevor took the stand, his hands shaking slightly as he was sworn in. Trevor, Sarah said gently, can you describe what happened the day of the flight? He nodded. My dad wanted me to switch seats with the woman in 3A, Ms. Ford. I told him it was fine. I didn't mind sitting alone, but he was angry. Said it was about principle, that she needed to be reminded who's in charge. Gasps whispered across the gallery. Even Judge Pennington sat back slightly. And what happened after? Trevor swallowed. After the video went viral, he told me to say she cursed at me, said it would make people think she provoked him. But she never did. We didn't even talk before he came up to her. And how has that affected you? I lost friends. People online called me complicit. I didn't know how to fix it, until I saw Ms. Ford stand up for herself. And I realized I had to do the same. The courtroom was silent. Blake looked like he was made of marble, rigid, cold, expressionless. But his eyes betrayed something new. Panic. Sarah rested her hand on the table, steadying her tone. Thank you, Trevor. That took courage. As he stepped down, the silence lingered, thick and electric. The judge turned to Blake's side. Mr. Kensington? Any response? Blake's attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, this is a family matter being dragged into. Don't insult the court's time, Pennington said. I've seen enough. She turned back to the bench. I will be issuing a full ruling in writing within 14 days. But I'll say this now. When power meets accountability, it is often messy. But that doesn't mean it's unjust. Court is adjourned. As the gavel fell, Blake stood up too fast, bumping his chair. For a moment, his mask cracked. His jaw was clenched, knuckles white, nostrils flaring as he looked toward Jasmine. But for once, she didn't look away, because he wasn't the one in control anymore. Outside the courthouse, reporters had already gathered. Cameras flashed, microphones were extended. "Miss Ford, any comment on the hearing?" Jasmine paused, then turned calmly to face them. "This was never about just one man or one incident," she said. "It's about a system that lets some people feel entitled to everything, and others made to feel grateful for anything. I said no, and I'll keep saying no, as many times as it takes." Trevor stood beside her then, a little awkwardly, but bravely. "Sometimes," she added, "it just takes one witness to change everything." Then she walked down the steps, not toward a car, not toward a camera, but toward her future. And Blake Holston? He watched her go. And for the first time in his life, he had no idea what to do next. 2 days after the courtroom showdown, Jasmine thought she might finally have a moment to breathe. But peace, she was learning, rarely lasted long when you were up against power. She was standing in the break room at her temporary office at Vanguard Materials, reviewing samples for a new aviation-grade composite, when her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. She stared at it. Her gut told her it wasn't spam. She picked up. "Dr. Ford?" The voice was male, smooth and too composed. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Daniel Crane, counsel for Blake Holston." "I believe we might have a mutual interest in bringing this matter to a quiet resolution." Jasmine's heart didn't race. Not anymore. She was past fear. "I already told your client. I'm not interested in a settlement that comes with silence." "Actually," Crane said, "that's why I'm calling. Mr. Holston is prepared to offer a substantial amount, without an NDA. A clean exit, 7 figures, you keep your voice." "He gets distance," she laughed, but it wasn't out of humor. "Tell Blake to stop playing PR chess with my life. I'm not for sale." Crane didn't respond immediately. Then more quietly, "You might want to reconsider. There are files being leaked. Your old job, your academic records, even the divorce you never talk about. People are going to start asking questions you don't want to answer." Jasmine's spine went stiff. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning," Crane said. "The press can turn on anyone, even a hero." She hung up. Within the hour, the first blog post hit. "Who is Jasmine Ford really?" The article painted her as an activist with a grudge, someone who had leveraged a minor airline incident for personal fame. It mentioned her divorce, vaguely alluded to questionable performance reviews from a prior position, and featured screenshots from old emails stripped of context. It didn't matter that none of it was damning. It was meant to seed doubt. Smear by implication. Sarah called immediately. "He's going nuclear," she said flatly. "This is coordinated. We traced the domain owner of the site to a PR firm that has ties to Holston's legal team. So what do? We punch back," Sarah replied, but carefully. "We can't afford missteps." Later that evening, Jasmine met with Maya at a quiet bistro tucked into the edge of downtown. It was supposed to be a chance to escape the noise, but Maya had news too. "I applied for a training position at Atlas Airways," she said, stirring her tea. "Got a call this morning." "That's great," Jasmine said, smiling for the first time in what felt like hours. Maya nodded. "It was until they mentioned a pending character concern flagged by another airline." I asked which one. They said national. Apparently someone from their exec team has been contacting other airlines, suggesting I'm a liability. Jasmine's smile vanished. That's retaliation, straight up.
Yeah, Maya said quietly. It is.
And it's working. Jasmine clenched her jaw. He's not just trying to bury me. He's burning everything I touch. That night, Jasmine opened her laptop and began writing a statement. Not a press release, not a legal defense, just the truth. She posted it to her personal blog, something she hadn't updated in over a year. I didn't ask to become a symbol. I just wanted to do my job and be treated with dignity. But since I refused to give up my seat, some people have tried to paint me as angry, ungrateful, and unqualified. So here's the truth. She laid it all out. Her background. Her degrees. The failed marriage she'd never talked about because it had nothing to do with her worth as a professional. The bullying she'd faced in previous roles. And most of all, what happened on that plane. I was tired that day, not just physically. Tired of making myself small so others didn't feel uncomfortable. Tired of pretending it didn't matter when it did. So I stayed in my seat. And I'm still here. And I'm not moving. By morning, the post had over 1.4 million views. The hashtag #StillInMySeat was trending again. But not all attention was welcome. A knock on her apartment door startled her. She hadn't buzzed anyone up. She peered through the peephole, a uniformed officer. Miss Ford? He asked, when she opened the door an inch, chain still latched. We received a report of a disturbance registered to this address. Anonymous tip. Said there were threats being made against a neighbor. Jasmine blinked. That's absolutely false. I haven't even spoken to anyone today. Can we come in and take a look? She hesitated. Do you have a warrant? The officer paused. No, ma'am, just doing our job. I understand. But unless you're here with a warrant, I'm going to respectfully decline. He looked at his partner, then back at her. Fair enough. Stay safe. After they left, she immediately called Sarah. That's classic intimidation, Sarah said. He's testing your fear threshold, seeing if he can rattle you into backing down. Well, it's not going to work. But even as she said it, Jasmine checked the locks 3 times before going to bed. The next day brought a twist she didn't expect. She received an email marked Confidential from a woman named Eliza Hammond, General Counsel for the Department of Transportation. Dr. Ford, I'm reaching out in light of recent public coverage and communications received by our office. There is growing concern about discriminatory practices at national airways, potentially violating federal anti-discrimination regulations tied to aviation licenses and contracts. Would you be willing to meet? Sarah reviewed the email with her. This is it. This could escalate this beyond Holston. If National Airways is found to have retaliated against you or Maya, that opens them up to massive liability. Jasmine nodded slowly. And he knows that. A second email arrived that same afternoon. From Trevor@Starlake EDU. Subject. It's time. Me. Ford, I have something. My father doesn't know I still have access to his backup drive. It includes conversations between him and national execs about managing fallout and containing the narrative. I'm willing to share everything. I just don't know who to trust anymore. But I trust you. As Jasmine read the message, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was preparing to burn the whole rotten system to the ground. And she wasn't alone. The cafe was tucked into a quiet corner of the Capitol Hill neighborhood, a place Trevor Whitfield had suggested because it was low-key, but the Wi-Fi works. Jasmine arrived first, her nerves vibrating under her skin. She'd spent the night poring over every one of Trevor's emails, cross-referencing names, phone numbers, and calendar attachments he'd quietly forwarded to her. At 9:07 a.m., Trevor walked in. Hoodie up, hands jammed in his jacket pockets, face tense but determined. He slid into the seat across from her and didn't bother with small talk. "My dad doesn't know I backed up his cloud drive," he said. "He thought I deleted the files like he told me." "You understand how important this is," Jasmine said carefully. "If what's in here matches what you've sent. It's more than retaliation. It's conspiracy. And it pulls in National Airways, PR firms, political donors." "It's worse than you think," Trevor interrupted. "There's one call recording. He didn't know the software auto-saved audio when he used his car's Bluetooth." "It's him, talking to someone on the national board. They laugh about blacklisting you and Maya." "Like it's sport." Jasmine's stomach turned. "You still have that?" Trevor pulled out a flash drive and pushed it across the table. She stared at it like it might burn a hole through the wood. "Are you okay, Trevor?" she asked quietly. He exhaled, eyes darting to the window. "I cut ties with him the day he called me a traitor. But I didn't realize how deep the poison ran. I used to think he was just old school, out of touch. But this is evil." He stood to leave, pausing before walking away. "Do whatever you need to. Just make sure people know what he did." Back at Sarah's office, they plugged in the drive. Jasmine watched as Sarah's expression hardened while the recording played. The voice was unmistakably Blake Holston's. She thinks her little viral fame makes her untouchable. "I'll give it 2 weeks before the narrative flips, and she's just another angry diversity hire who couldn't hack it. Mark my words. By Q4, she'll be unemployable." A second male voice, older, replied through laughter. "As long as she doesn't drag National into it, we're fine. But keep your girl Maya quiet. These flight attendant types have big mouths." "That's handled," Blake said. Sarah paused the recording. "That's enough. This isn't just civil. This is criminal obstruction, witness intimidation, retaliation. We're going to the feds." An hour later, Jasmine found herself sitting in the Seattle field office of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Office of Aviation Enforcement, across from a woman named Renee Mathers, who wore a navy suit and a skeptical expression. "We've reviewed the complaint," Renee began. "Normally, these things take months to even gain traction, but the materials your attorney sent us are substantial." "You heard the recording?" Jasmine asked. Renee nodded. "We did, and we verified the voice print. Mr. Holston's voice matches publicly available audio. That, coupled with the HR patterns we've now subpoenaed from National Airways, creates probable cause for federal inquiry." Jasmine blinked. "So you're opening an investigation?" "Not just that. We're freezing their pending government travel contracts until the investigation concludes, and we'll be reaching out to the EEOC and Department of Justice to coordinate. This isn't small anymore." Words spread like wildfire. By the next day, Bloomberg had published a breaking report. National Airways under federal review amid allegations of discriminatory retaliation. Stock prices dipped 11% before noon. Maya called, her voice shaking with a mix of disbelief and catharsis. "They suspended the executive VP who oversaw my termination." "HR emailed me offering to reopen my employment file. I told them I'd consider it, after they apologized publicly." By week's end, Sarah had submitted an amended civil complaint, now supported by multiple whistleblowers, including a former National Airways flight operations manager who confirmed internal communications had used Jasmine's name in training sessions as a case study in managing passenger narrative risk. "That's not even a dog whistle," Sarah muttered. "It's a siren." Meanwhile, Holston's lawyers shifted into damage control. They offered Jasmine $8 million, no NDA, no apology. "Just go away," she declined. The pressure intensified. More hit pieces circulated. Old college acquaintances were suddenly interviewed. quoted out of context. A segment on a national news station framed her as a divisive figure complicating the conversation around corporate diversity. One evening, Jasmine found a man waiting outside her building. He was clean-cut, early 40s, in a suit, but something about the way he stood set off her instincts. "You're Dr. Ford?" he asked.
Who are you?
"Let's just say I represent interests tied to major stakeholders in this case. I'm not here to threaten you, just to talk. You're on private property." He nodded. "Then I'll be brief. There are people in Washington who don't want this turning into a precedent. You're opening a door that makes them nervous."
"You keep pushing, and you'll make enemies you can't see coming."
She didn't flinch. "You finished?"
"Just think about how far you want to take this. Sometimes change comes slow."
Quiet. Controlled. She stepped forward.
"Or sometimes it comes when a black woman on a plane refuses to move and makes people like you uncomfortable."
He left without another word. Later that night, Trevor messaged her. He's panicking. He hired digital firms to push smear campaigns overseas. I heard him scream at his legal team, "You're winning. Just hold the line." But Jasmine wasn't after victory. Not yet. What she wanted was accountability. Consequences. Truth. The next morning, Sarah burst into her office with flushed cheeks.
"You're not going to believe this," she said. "The Washington Post is about to drop a piece with confirmation that Halston's private investment firm has been under IRS audit for over a year. And there's overlap.
They found slush fund payments made to shell charities used to pressure non-profits that spoke out against him."
Jasmine stared at her.
"He's not just going to lose his case," Sarah said. "He might go to prison."
And for the first time in months, Jasmine felt the weight begin to lift.
The reckoning wasn't coming. It was already here. The courtroom was buzzing before Jasmine even walked in.
National media crews had staked out positions outside. Satellite trucks lined the street. It wasn't just about her anymore. This had become a litmus test for corporate accountability, racial equity, and whether power could still silence truth in America. Sarah straightened Jasmine's blazer as they waited outside the courtroom doors.
"You okay?"
she asked.
"No,"
Jasmine said truthfully, "but I'm ready." The final hearing wasn't about discovery or depositions. It was the ruling. Judge Holloway, a federal judge with a reputation for integrity, had been assigned after Peterson recused himself under public scrutiny. The hearing began promptly. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Jasmine took a deep breath. This was it. After preliminary remarks, Judge Holloway addressed the court. This matter, involving the plaintiff Jasmine Ford and the defendants National Airways and Blake Halston, concerns not only the specifics of employment retaliation and defamation, but the broader question of whether systemic influence and corporate pressure can invalidate an individual's pursuit of justice. He paused. Having reviewed the testimonies, the federal investigation findings, and supplemental evidence, this court rules in favor of Dr. Ford on all counts. The courtroom was still. Then Sarah clutched Jasmine's hand. "In addition to compensatory damages totaling $12 million, the judge continued, this court orders the reinstatement of Miss Maya Chen to her previous position with full back pay and demands National Airways issue a public apology for its retaliatory conduct." Gasps swept through the room. Jasmine blinked back tears. Judge Holloway wasn't done. Furthermore, this court refers the matter of Mr. Halston's actions to the U.S. Attorney's Office for possible criminal prosecution relating to obstruction, retaliation, and coordinated corporate misconduct. Blake Halston's face went pale. One of his lawyers dropped his pen. As the ruling sank in, reporters dashed out to file live updates. Jasmine sat frozen. She had won, not a settlement, not a compromise.
Justice. Outside the courthouse, the crowd had grown. When Jasmine stepped out, applause erupted. She didn't expect it, didn't want it for vanity's sake. But in that moment, it felt like something deeper. Solidarity, recognition, relief. Maya rushed up and hugged her tightly. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Jasmine said. "We did." Trevor was there too, standing off to the side, hands in his pockets. He gave her a nod. Quiet, proud. Later that night, in her apartment, Jasmine finally allowed herself to collapse onto the couch. Her phone buzzed non-stop with interview requests, article links, emails from strangers thanking her for not giving up. One message stood out. It was from the Department of Transportation. "Dr. Ford, following the court's decision, we have formally blacklisted Blake Halston and his affiliated firms from any future government contracts pending criminal investigation. Your courage has set a precedent." She stared at the screen for a long time. That same evening, the Flight 2267 Foundation website went live, an organization funded in part by Jasmine's legal award, designed to provide legal aid for victims of workplace discrimination and retaliation. The homepage read, "Sometimes the most powerful act is simply refusing to move." In the following weeks, ripple effects spread through the industry. Multiple airlines revised their DEI training policies. National Airways Board forced Halston's full resignation. He vanished from public view. Investors pivoted toward rebuilding trust, hiring independent ethics firms, and re-evaluating HR leadership. Trevor released a public statement as well. "I grew up believing power made you untouchable. I've learned that integrity, not money, defines real strength. I'm proud to stand with those who refuse to be silenced." The video went viral. Again. Months later, Jasmine gave the keynote speech at an aerospace diversity summit in San Diego. As she stepped onto the stage, she glanced out at the sea of faces, engineers, pilots, interns, and students from across the country. "I didn't ask for this fight," she began, "but once I found myself in it, I realized backing down would mean letting others suffer quietly after me." She paused. "Today, I'm not here as a victim of injustice. I'm here as proof that truth, when fought for relentlessly, can break through even the most fortified walls. But make no mistake, it takes more than one person. It takes people like Maya, like Trevor, like every one of you who decides that silence is no longer an option." The audience rose in standing ovation. That night, as she boarded a flight home to Atlanta, Maya was once again working the cabin, this time in her new role as a corporate trainer, overseeing an entire diversity and equity initiative built around employee voices. "Full circle," Maya said with a grin as she handed Jasmine a cup of ginger tea. "I like this ending," Jasmine replied. Maya laughed. "It's not the ending, just the start of the next chapter." And Jasmine believed her, because the true victory wasn't just in court or headlines. It was in every policy quietly changed behind closed doors. Every company suddenly training HR differently. Every employee who now knew that someone had stood up and said, "No more." So to every person watching this story unfold, ask yourself, what would you do when the world tells you to move? Would you stay silent or speak? Would you shrink or stand? Because sometimes one act of resistance echoes further than we ever imagine. If Jasmine's journey moved you, share her story. Comment below. Have you ever witnessed discrimination? Did you speak up? Would you now? Subscribe for more powerful, true stories that remind us justice doesn't just happen, it's demanded. It's fought for. It's claimed, seat by seat. Voice by voice. And sometimes the most powerful word you can say is simply no.